Hey folks, Nathan here from the Star Wars Timeline Gold, Star Wars Beyond the Films, and Cloud City Casino, a Star Wars gaming podcast, along with Star Wars Beyond the Films at StarWarsReport.com, bring you a quick look at another Edge of the Empire RPG item here from Fantasy Flight Games. This is one of four, by the way, which also includes Chronicles of the Gatekeeper, and Mask of the Pirate Queen, and Friends Like These, that basically I just haven't had time to get to yet until very recently. Those three are adventure modules. I'm still going through them. Because basically, before I can give you a review, I want to make sure I actually know what the hell I'm talking about. But in those cases, as they are adventures, that means going through them, reading them, taking notes with things like post-it notes there, and once I'm done, then putting all that information on my Star Wars Timeline Gold over at StarWarsFanWorks.com/timeline. Until such time as all the information is on the timeline, the post-its stay stuck in the book, and that's just not a good look if we're going to do a review. So the review comes after all of that stuff is already done, and adventure modules take absolutely forever, especially when I frankly don't have a whole lot of time to get to them. So we will get to those adventures sometime in the near future, but not yet. This time we're taking a look at one that was much faster to get through, so we can take a look at it, which is No Disintegrations. This is a source book specifically for the bounty hunter character type. Now what we get here, as usual, is a 3-chapter structure, with the first chapter being, as usual, your different character options and whatnot. So Hunters for Hire gives us some new backgrounds, gives us new obligations for bounty hunters, and 3 different species to use. We have the Clawdite, like Zam Wesell back in Attack of the Clones. We have Deveronian, like many other characters we see in Star Wars across the different trilogies and other stories. And then, oddly enough, a Keleran. A Keleran, or someone from Keller, is a type of character that was introduced in the Kanan comic book series. That is, Kanan the Last Padawan. One of his mentors is a Keleran named Canis Jasmir, and this is where he gets that Kanan Jarrus name from, when his real name is actually Caleb Doom. All that's explained in the comic series, but suffice to say, that species is now inserted into the RPG, again making this a mix of some Legends material, some canon material meant to be a new, authentic Star Wars experience, not necessarily something for one continuity or another. We then get into our new specializations, which include the Martial Artist, the Operator, which is sort of a bounty hunter focusing on tracking down subjects, and then a Skip Tracer, which is a bounty hunter focused much more on the investigative side of the situation, someone who may or may not actually enter combat very often. We then have new talents, new bounty hunter motivations, and then new signature abilities. We start with Always Get My Mark, and then we have Unmatched Devastation. That brings us into Guns Blazing, which is all of our new equipment, ships, and so forth. Not a whole lot of new continuity information in here. Many of the different descriptions of weapons and armor and such are relatively vague. They're just sort of an armor type as opposed to a specific model by a specific company with a specific background for the most part. But this lets you gear up your armor with all kinds of cool new attachments and whatnot, very much like a Mandalorian. In fact, you can even use Mandalorian armor, and it tells you how to go on an adventure essentially to try to acquire some. We then have new starships, which primarily are new starships that have been found already in the X-Wing miniatures game, hence a lot of detail to some ships that we've seen before, and attachments to those ships. Finally, we have the Thrill of the Chase, which helps set up things for game masters and characters when you have a bounty hunter involved in your gaming session. They talk about integrating bounty hunters, and then the coolest part probably of this entire book is the focus on investigations. How is it that you're going to approach a bounty hunt where there's some mystery involved in figuring out who the culprit is, where they are, what their motivations were, and so forth before you go after them. Very cool stuff here, and it talks about, among other things, things like creating the big question, the big answer, the culprit, establishing means, motive, and opportunity and such. Almost like someone is writing a mystery novel or a gumshoe type of novel. And then, of course, to give you a sense of how these actually work in gameplay design, you get an example scenario, and then 3 different sample campaign approaches: Company Man, Double Lives, and Hero of the People, before finally then getting into rewards and whatnot to wrap up your adventures. Honestly, From what I've seen just of people playing Edge of the Empire, it seems like bounty hunters are a relatively common profession, or taking other characters who aren't bounty hunters and giving them a chance to get involved in bounty hunting scenarios or investigations. That, I would say, makes this, if you're playing Edge of the Empire, one of the most important individual character class sourcebooks that they've released thus far. Things like special modifications and so forth. So, if you're playing Edge of the Empire, especially if you're playing with bounty hunters, I would highly recommend No Disintegrations. New, relatively new at least, from Fantasy Flight Games.